I've been asked consistently over the last 8 years by different principals on managers you should consider opening a practice, and I think it's something that a lot of associates consider and feel as though is the next logical step, but it's not really. In my humble opinion, it's not really the next logical step. As an associate, you are very sheltered from the reality of how difficult it is owning a practice and running a practice. We are extremely entitled as associates, and we don't really appreciate how stressful and difficult it is. We see all of the success and the cars and the house and the lifestyle, the supposed lifestyle that successful principals have. What we don't see is the years of graft, the years of barely breaking even, if not making a significant loss, that a lot of these principals had to go through in order to get to that position where they're finally making some decent money as a principal and taking money as a business owner. I had a discussion with a principal recently who owned 2 practices. They were in debt with those 2 practices to the tune of £1.5 million. They were paying off their debt slowly. And I sat down with them and we had a discussion about the financial situation. And it came to light that this principal who owned 2 practices, who was in debt to the tune of £1.5 million, was taking home less than a good, motivated, hard-working associate. And I couldn't help asking myself, what is the point of this? Why are you doing this to yourself? There's absolutely zero benefit for you owning these 2 practices, apart from maybe the supposed prestige of being a business owner. You're in debt to over £1.5 million. You have the stress of managing 2 practices, not even just 1 practice. Another thing, associates do not understand and appreciate how annoying we are to deal with. Associates are really annoying. They're demanding, they're always breaking things, and nurses, right? Nurses, it's an absolute nightmare getting good nurses these days. The work ethic of especially new generation of nurses and associates is absolutely abominable. And not just the new generation, there's a lot of older dentists, associates and nurses who are entering the job market with a very poor work ethic and expecting the world and their income and their risk to come to them without any significant hard work, right? So first of all, it's an absolute nightmare finding really good, motivated, hard-working nurses. Second of all, associates are an absolute nightmare to deal with. They're moany, they complain all the time, they break stuff, they're always demanding more. And as the principal, you're not going to realise how annoying associates are until you're put in that position of having to manage these fussy associates. So this practice owner owns 2 practices. He's in debt to over £1.5 million, has the headache of dealing with patients, not only patients, obviously we all know how stressful and difficult patients can be, but also staff. Finding a good nurse who's already qualified and experienced is almost impossible. Training a good nurse from young is better, but then obviously you have to actually train them, which is time intensive. So maybe it's not a huge financial investment, but it's going to be a huge time investment. At least 1 or potentially 2 years before this nurse is fully up to scratch and up to speed with being able to work and work fast as a good nurse. And then you've got to deal with all of these dentists who are an absolute headache, who aren't working with good work ethic, who are lazy potentially. I'm not saying all associates. I'm an associate, so understand that. They're having to deal with all of the annoyances that come with dealing with dentists and associates who feel a little bit entitled and expect the world to come to their feet. So imagine being in that position and taking home less than a hard-working associate. Is there any benefit to this? Absolutely no. If you're an associate and you're making £10,000, potentially £15,000 a month, or maybe even more, a bunch of our Inner Circle delegates are making around 20k a month as associates. It's very possible. It's not easy. Nobody's saying it's easy, but it's possible. Okay? If you're doing that as an associate, understand that you are working a 9-to-5 job, and once you leave work, that's you able to leave dentistry and teeth at the door of the practice. You don't have the headaches of managing your patients for the next day, usually. You don't have the headache of managing the cash flow of the business, the income and the expenditure. You don't have any of those headaches. You're able to do a 9-to-5 job and then leave dentistry at the door. But if you own a practice, you do not have that luxury. So the grass is not always greener on the other side. And you need to understand that. Don't be a civilian. Understand the pros and the cons. Understand the consequences of these decisions. Yes, it is possible to develop an incredible lifestyle as a principal where you could potentially retire completely and you could make money and cash flow and income from the associates who are working for you. But it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows, and it's not going to come immediately. It's going to be a lot of graft. You're going to be making a loss for a significant period of time. You might eventually break even after 3, 4, 5 years, and then after that point, yeah, you might be making some passive income, but it's not going to be massive or life-changing for at least 5 to 10 years. And then also understand that there's a huge amount of competition in the market. There's literally dental practices everywhere now, right? Unless you find a location where you have the monopoly of an entire area and you've got a really good patient base who have money, who aren't annoying, who aren't majority exempt NHS patients, then maybe you might have it a little bit easier. But you need to understand that that's extremely difficult to find. So overall, for the young associates who are doing really, really well, I personally don't believe that principalship is the logical next step. I still get asked constantly, Maz, you in this position, blah, 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 would you consider owning a practice? And quite honestly, no. I understand. I have many friends and family members who own practices, and I understand the stress and the time involved in owning a business like that. It's not a passive business unless you have a partner who agrees to take on all of the management responsibilities, and you're going to be a silent partner who just benefits from the cash flow potentially. So if I was a young associate who needed dentistry for income, I would work my bum off for my main asset, which is dentistry. I would do extra qualifications, potentially implants or endodontics, something like that, maybe oral surgery, and I would absolutely work my bum off 40 to 60 hours a week for the first 5 to 10 years of my career. You are comfortably going to get to a position where you're making at least 10k a month, potentially 15, 20k. Very realistic and very possible with a lot of hard work. Optimize your tax strategy, invest as soon as possible, and I can essentially guarantee you that within the space of 10 to 15 years, you will get to a point where you are completely work optional. And what does work optional mean? Work optional means having the choice to do dentistry if you want. If you've got that special interest in oral surgery, endodontics, implants, whatever, you have the option to do dentistry if you want. 2-3 days a week, but the rest of the time you can dedicate to your family, to raising your children, dedicating quality time to your children rather than just buying them expensive gifts and gadgets to kind of attempt to make up for the time that you should be spending with them. You'll have the option. If you want to work full-time, you have the option to work full-time. If you want to work part-time, you can work part-time. If you want to work full-time but take 2, 3, 4 months of the year away from dentistry to go traveling, you have that option. That is what work optional means. And if you are at that point after 10 to 15 years where you are financially work optional, where you've been investing aggressively and you don't enjoy dentistry anymore, you have that option. You have that choice to stop working. So young dentists, understand that you need to work your bum off for the first few years, graft, work overtime, but have a good balance. Make sure that you're doing all of the self-care. Make sure that you're going to the gym, taking care of your health, you're eating healthy, you're having regular deep tissue massages, physiotherapy, chiropractor for your back and your neck. Make sure that you're looking after yourself. Make sure that you're working hard. Work hard, make all of that amazing income, invest aggressively, and within the space of 10 to 15 years, I can almost guarantee you, you'll be in a very comfortable financial position. Unlike the previous generations of dentists who assumed that they had to work for 30 to 40 years before they are given permission by the government at 74 or whatever age that they are allowed to retire. That's not us anymore, okay? We have all of these incredible resources, all of these incredible assets that we can invest into to achieve the position of being work optional very, very quickly. And it's possible for the older dentists. Just understand that there's no shortcuts. You're going to have to graft, you're going to have to put a lot of money in, and you're going to have to invest consistently and aggressively. And if you can do that, it's very, very possible.